Welcome back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective, and thank you all for following along in this journey. I have used this podcast as a way to share my own story, but also to highlight that of a father that we don't see very many of on the front lines or on the front lines of social media for that matter. So I reached out not too long ago and asked for fathers to reach out and be able to share their stories from their perspectives. And today I have a guest with me, Daniel, who is going to talk about his story along with his daughter, Lily. So Daniel, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Yeah, thanks. So I guess I'll start kind of with her original diagnosis was a little bit over a year ago, very end of March. It kind of started with going to the doctor with her feeling constipated, not really using the bathroom, not really eating or anything, which I found out after going through this for a while seems like it's pretty common for a lot of kids. That's kind of their first step towards that. But sent us home with just laxatives. They were like, oh, should clear up, should be fine in a couple days. Went back in a couple days later for the same thing, and we were kind of fortunate that my wife at the time was working for Children's Hospital here in Colorado, so she was able to take her into her own office there. She was working on an ER in the orthopedic field, and they were like, hey, we think it actually might be something else. You guys should go down to the main campus in Aurora. So I was at work that day. She called me. She was like, hey, they think it might be something. They want us to go down here. So met them down there after work at about 5:30 or 6. Went in. They're like, oh, yeah, we'll do a couple tests, but we still think it's just constipation. We'll probably get you guys out of here in a little bit. Ended up doing a couple scans. This was probably 10:30 at night. They were like, oh, we think we found a mass, but we need to do some more blood work stuff, make sure it is what we think it is before we move forward at all. And then eventually they came back and they were like, hey, you guys are going to be admitted. We think it's high risk neuroblastoma, which me and my wife had never heard before. You're going to go up to oncology on the 7th floor. We'll do some follow-up tests and everything in the next couple days, but it looks like you'll start chemo here in the next week or two. So it was kind of a whirlwind of the first couple hours. Definitely didn't get much sleep that first night for sure. Lily was sleeping in the crib that night and kept getting stuck in the little railings. So I was sleeping in the chair next to her the whole night, and every once in a while she'd wake up and she'd be like, oh, I'm stuck. So I'd have to wake up, get her out and everything. And at the time, she'll turn 3 in July. So she was only about a little bit younger than 2, so not many words were being strung together. And that's actually one of the first things we were able to pick up on before her diagnosis was her just saying, owie tummy. And then even one day before we went into the hospital, my wife was like, oh, like, is your tummy still hurt? She's like, yeah. And she goes, do you think you need to go to the doctor? And she goes, yeah, doctor. So that was kind of a big cue for us to start going in. But we found out March 28th is when we went up. First round of chemo started on the 4th, so just a couple days later. And during that whole first couple days, me and my wife both had to stop because everyone was just referring to it as high-risk neuroblastoma. And I think about 2 days of staying at the hospital, we finally were like, wait, so is this like cancer? Like, what are we kind of dealing with here? And they're like, oh yeah, like that's what this is. So I think that was kind of our first big blow of like, oh, this is real. But after the first round of chemo, she was not really walking around or anything. Finally started walking about 5 or 6 days after her first round of chemo. Along with that came lots of fluid overload, just trying to rehydrate her after the first couple days. She started to have trouble breathing within those first couple days. So we actually got sent down to the PICU for 3 days during our first admission. She got put on high flow oxygen. Kind of had to move everything out of the room that we were in because they needed space for new families coming up. So kind of moving everything that we had brought down to the PICU, and then a couple days later ending up bringing it back up. And then the day we were about to leave, she actually spiked a fever. So we had to do more blood work, ended up staying for a whole nother week. And then by that time, it was time for her next round of chemo. So we ended up staying for about a month. Our first admission, in total, she did 5 rounds of chemo, followed by 2 bone marrow transplants, followed by 12 rounds of radiation, and then 5 rounds of immunotherapy after that. Each stay for chemo, she started to feel a little bit better each one. And then bone marrow transplant was definitely one of the hardest, just going in. It's just high levels of chemo. And then obviously the bone marrow kind of takes it out of her for sure. We were very lucky that she was able to be her own bone marrow donor. So within those first couple rounds of chemo, they were able to take the bone marrow, save it, and then she was able to kind of get it re-injected for those 2 rounds of bone marrow transplant.
So thank you for sharing all of that. And it's kind of hard to hear. I mean, I think for anybody, but for somebody kind of listening to hearing the same types of symptoms, that constipation seems to be a very common thing that when you go to your pediatrician or you go to the ER or you go to an urgent care, it's very easy to kind of just cast it off as that. And it's not throwing shade at the medical community. It's just that we don't think further than it could be. And we weren't thinking that it was anything more serious, and when they're kids and kids get into things and they pick up germs. And so it's scary that small kind of almost insignificant symptom is so common in this community. And it's kind of almost where a lot of it starts.
Mm-hmm.
And so were there any other kind of symptoms or signs if you either noticed prior or that you go back and look at that were connected to this or would have put you kind of on that path earlier than the diagnosis was given?
I don't think really anything specific. She did have kind of like the toddler belly, when like kind of walk around with a beer belly a little bit. And hers, I guess, looking back on it, when we look at pictures and stuff, we're like, oh yeah, her stomach does look pretty big in those. But at the time, it's like you just think that she's just has a little toddler belly.
Yeah. I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
we think we did the same thing. You go back and look at pictures and think, well, something's not right there. We should have noticed something there, or could we have noticed it sooner?
Yeah, I think that me and my wife talked about that a bunch. Like, what could we have done to like notice it earlier? Were there any other signs? And really, like, as far as Lily's case goes, there wasn't anything noticeable for sure. I mean, we caught on to her not eating and being constipated within a couple days of it really starting. And then even after those meds were given for her to be able to use the bathroom and everything, it was only 2 or 3 days after that we had gone back and they were like, oh yeah, let's go ahead and send you to the main campus over there.
Yeah, and I think the truth is, and for yourself, for your family, and for us, and for anybody listening, there's nothing you could have done different at this point. You did what you were supposed to do. You followed your guts, your instincts, and nobody prepares for that to be the answer you get when something's not right. We're not thinking that. So yeah, there's no, we can go back and look at pictures. We can go back and look in the past and stuff like that. But what ifs will drive us all crazy. 100%. I want to jump really quick to, you said that she had 2 bone marrow transplant. Did one not take, the first one not take?
No, so that was in her plan from day one, was to do multiple bone marrow transplants. Yeah, and we actually, those stays were planned to be a month to 2 months. Neither of them ended up being actually a full month, which was great just because she bounced back pretty fast from those. I think our longest stay was actually probably our first one. There was that first round of chemo and then being sent down to the PICU and then back up for her second round of chemo.
Yeah, and I'm trying to, I'm thinking and listening and comparing at the same time and remembering a normal hospital room, and then you get to the NICU or the PICU and there's 0 space to move.
Yeah.
And and you're a tall guy, right? So there's no room to move in there for that kind of stuff. And you're trying to be close to the kids, but at the same time, it's very difficult. And those sights and sounds they stick with you. So were there any significant, let's just talk about the normal, because I know about, obviously the high dose chemo prior to bone marrow transplants, and which is essentially to, what chemo does. This is on steroids, for a lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Were there any significant side effects from the normal chemo?
A lot more like mucus drainage, like sores in her throat and everything. She actually got so good at the little suction things that they have in the hospital that she was doing it herself um, by the second round. First round, she was kind of freaking out, like she didn't like it at all. But second round, she was like, "Oh yeah, give me that. I know what that does. Clears me up a little bit." But yeah, that, and then I can't remember what the baths are called, but the because the chemo is like kind of leaking out of your skin and everything, you have to do the baths every night. And with her having all of her tubes and her G tube and everything, I just remember that being uh, very hard because like those hospital rooms are not big enough for me to be able to get
Yeah,
in the bathroom with her and
right.
try and give her a bath without getting everything else soaking wet that cannot get wet.
Yeah, that's some. I believe if I'm correct, the drug is thiotepa,
Yeah.
and that's the only chemo drug for whatever reason that excretes to the skin. And so yeah, they have to take those. Like when we were in there, our nurse actually like made like a chart that she could put stickers on that this is, you have to take a bath this many times. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's a pain
Yeah.
to do. But I mean, the soap smells great. I mean, I guess if we
Yeah.
find if we want to have a silver lining somewhere in it, yeah, that's a lot. And these kids, especially when she was what, 2 when she was in there.
That would have been when she was 2. Yeah, because she turned 2 before her bone marrow transplants.
Okay, yeah, and but that even at that young age, or things like they're even just a few years older, they understand so much more than what
Hmm.
I think the world gives them credit for. And they want to do things themselves, like the suction machine or
Yeah.
whatever. And when we had those little sponges on a stick that you're supposed to, when you
Hmm.
rinse your mouth out, our daughter got real well at just kind of putting it in her mouth. I don't think she actually touched it to anything and then would give it
Yeah.
back. Like, I did it, and what are you gonna say?
Yeah. Exactly.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
She started pretty early with the as soon as any nurse would come in, being the go away, like go away, get out. And then even this last day, we went in and she goes, "Don't hook me up, don't hook me up," just because she wanted to run around the halls and do everything before her meds started.
yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, I guess it's that the innocence of a child, to watch them go through this stuff. It's horrible, obviously, from our point of view as parents, but
Hmm.
what they can do to kind of just continue to have that, I don't know, that personality. They don't lose the personality, and they understand it, but they're still just kids, and they're just trying to be a kid, and embracing that is so, so important to going through this battle with them. Let's see. So talk to us. Actually, I'm just going to bounce around, and I do that sporadically because that's how my brain works. I was kind of going through the Instagram and things like that. So talk to us about what looked like an amazing Make-A-Wish that she had.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was definitely the highlight of the last year. So she wasn't really into many cartoons or anything when we first got diagnosed, but that very quickly changed when she wasn't able to walk around or do much. She fell in love with Mickey Mouse and Goofy and Pluto and all them. So when we got the chance to do Make a Wish, once she turned 2.5, because that's their kind of starting age, we knew immediately. We went to the Wish Discovery, and she was like, "Oh, meet Mickey," and like meet all these characters, and we were able to go to Disney World and stay at the Give Kids the World Village, which was just incredible. I mean, we were set up with me, my wife, my parents, my wife's 2 brothers, and then my wife's parents as well, all in one house, which was super nice because we could all stay together, eat together, breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything. And then we did Disney World for 3 days. And then the 2 days that we were able to do Universal. Lily actually was able to stay at Give Kids the World because they have arcades, merry-go-round, characters walking around, free ice cream for the kids all day, all that. So one of the grandparents would stay with her during that time, and then we would go to Universal just to kind of have our own space a little bit, try and relax, as much as we could.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it looked like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, she keeps asking to go back. She'll sit at home in our apartment and go, "Daddy, I want to go home." And I'm like, "We are what are you talking about? She goes, no, the one that's far away. And I was like, the one that's far away? And she goes, with Mickey. With Mickey. I was like, oh, well, that was that was a lot of fun, but it's kind of a one time thing for right now. But all the time when she's going to bed, I'm like, oh, have sweet dreams. She's like, I dream about Mickey and Minnie. I was like, all right, dream about Mickey and Minnie. Like, have fun.
I love it. I love it because you created such a core memory that's sticking with her now, and it's going to end up costing you a lot of money in the long run because you're going to be going back.
Yeah.
But but it's awesome though, and it's awesome that you got to spend that with so many people, and have that experience where essentially you're not worrying about anything but just being with family, which is so incredible. Make-A-Wish does incredible things, and I was actually able to interview them about it last year, to kind of talk about what they really do and what they stand for, and it's incredible what they can do for the whole family, and include everything.
Yeah. I was amazed at how fast they were able to do everything. Like when we went in, we were kind of expecting that we wouldn't do it until maybe August, September. And they were kind of like, oh, yeah, we have next week already booked. So would you guys want to go like 2 weeks from now? And we were like, well, we got to like plan with our work schedule a little bit. Like, I can't just drop everything. But it was incredible with how fast they were able to do everything and how much kind of care they give for all the kiddos out there.
Yeah, it's awesome. It really is good. I know we had a really good experience with them, so I always love to hear. We have another friend that's going to be doing that soon too, and I love to hear about the good experiences, and also another family we know that stayed at the Give Kids a World village there, and it's the same thing. So it's really awesome that not only Make-A-Wish can do that, but that Disney has that place where they can provide all of that, and that one-on-one really. So that's awesome, and I'm glad to hear that worked out really well. And so, like I said, I'm going to bounce around, and that's just the way that my brain works. I can't help it. So the diagnosis was neuroblastoma. What did they, and like you said, they kind of didn't really mention that it was cancer, or maybe you just didn't get that from what the diagnosis was. What did they explain to you that neuroblastoma was, and prognosis, kind of things like that? What did they kind of give you?
Yeah, so it was mainly like after we got the scans and everything back, it took up like most of her abdomen, which was why she wasn't able to go to the bathroom or anything. But they were pretty much like, yeah, she was growing, her cells went to reproduce and just kind of messed up, and then they just kept reproducing like that and formed the tumor on her liver, and that eventually grew and pushed her kidneys just kind of out to the sides. That was why her stomach was getting so big, and then it was actually wrapping around her veins and arteries in her stomach and everything. So their explanation was kind of like, hey, it's just kind of bad luck at this point. Like, there's nothing you could have done to change it, to make it not happen, to prevent it at all. It's just kind of one of those things where it happens, and now you have to kind of just go through this whole process of getting rid of it and everything.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that we need to kind of make the world aware of, is that a lot of the cancers and things that affect our children not necessarily could be prevented. These are just, and especially in this community, it's just bad luck, and we don't understand why it happens. We don't understand to the great deal why it happens, which is why we probably don't have the tools necessary to fix it. And that's kind of what we're hoping to do with raising awareness and sharing our stories and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually went in for her. She was feeling a little bit sick a couple days ago, but we went into her just primary care doctor, and we realized when they closed the door, they had to post her up that was, I can't remember what kind of cancer it was talking about, but it was like a knight with a shield. It was like, oh, you can help like prevent cancer, like in this specific thing. I mean, Nikki kind of looked at it and we are like, well, I mean, sure, maybe, but for most of the time, there's nothing you can do. It's kind of, we didn't feel like offended by it or anything, but it was kind of like, well, why are we promoting this idea that you can just prevent childhood cancer?
Right. Listen, I think that it's, and again, social media, and I'll say it over and over again, is a love-hate relationship. But social media is where you'll find internet doctors that will tell you that you did everything wrong, or you did this, you did that. And of course, we can all, change our diets, change our living habits, all that kind of stuff. And maybe, give yourself or your family a better chance at not having something like this happen. But the reality of it is, think of, children that have liver cancer. Did they get liver cancer because they were at the bar every night? You know what I mean? It's the type of thing like that. You have to look back and say, no, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Again, our daughter, if I jump in there, is she didn't have the gene mutation that would have made her predisposed. We don't have it as a history in our family. There's no rhyme or reason for it. It just happened, and yes, we spent the better part of the entire time going through all of that, wondering, what did we do wrong? What could we have done differently? Is it our fault? And to the point where even they asked us if we wanted to do genetic testing, and we said no, because we were worried that if the genetics came back that it was from my side of the genes, that, there would be resentment towards me or vice versa towards my wife. And so, we chose not to do that out of that fear.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, maybe we're uncommon for doing that. I don't know. We really, really kind of tortured ourselves over that question when we were in the hospital the first time.
Yeah, I think that we were definitely thinking about that a lot. I don't think it ever came up as far as like gene testing for either of us, but I think we would have been in the exact same boat of like, well, it's happened already. Like us figuring out whose genes it is, if it is that, not really going to change anything at this point. If anything, like you said, it would just might cause resentment and just make things worse. It's not going to help anyone. I mean, it might help down the road, like preventing, like you can test before like having kids, maybe see if you have that, see if it's a possibility. But like you said, I feel like we were at the point where it's like, well, we're already at this stage. Like it's not gonna change anything.
Right. It's not gonna make things any different. I think, there's other testing. Obviously, the donation of the tissue is something that we did do, only that only happened just this past year.
Mm-hmm.
After not actually knowing that her tumor was on file. The entire time since her diagnosis in 2020, we had no idea that it was even there.
Yeah.
So we finally did that. We feel like that's a good thing to do because that gives tissue samples for research, which is what we're missing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sometimes it's like you kind of forget about those things as far as what research really needs to be, like what you need for the research, I think. Which, I mean, I'd have to check to see if they had kept Lily's cells and all that from her reduction surgery, but
were they able to do a 100% resection of everything?
So they were able to get over 90%. The only things they weren't able to get were pieces that were still like attached to her liver or too close to arteries. So that's why we kind of stuck with the original treatment plan, because she got her reduction surgery before even any bone marrow transplants were done. So she got her reduction surgery and put into remission pretty quick in the process, but I don't think either of us really felt like she was until we were kind of nearing the end, just because nothing was changing. We're like, she's in remission, but we're going to keep the same treatment plan as if she wasn't, just to make sure that we kind of get everything that we can, just because they weren't able to get 100%, just a little bit over, I think over 90% of the tumor. So
yeah, I think, and this was different for us, and again, the what ifs and things like that. But chemo, when they create a chemo plan or a treatment plan that involves everything from chemotherapy to radiation, surgery, immunotherapies, I think the plan is much like a prescription. You get a prescription, you take it till the end, even if you feel better after 2 pills, because they want to make sure that does its full course. So you go through the chemo cycle and everything, and even if everything looks good, you just continue with the plan, because that, I don't know if you want to say it's proven or it's worked in the past, but you definitely want to stay on point with what has been set, just to say we've got through it, and then we can look at other options if we have to.
yeah, and I think it's one of those things where if you stopped early and then it comes back, you're like, would it have came back if we would have just stuck to the plan the whole time? And then it kind of brings up just that regret of like not doing it. So I'm really glad that we stuck to it and everything.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 100% on that, because when we with everything we went through, she had 30 rounds of radiation. And then at the end of that radiation, she was showing no evidence of disease, nothing, no cells, no anything. So we stopped, like we didn't do the chemotherapy, which was phenomenal, but it wasn't phenomenal 4 months later when she relapsed. And so then you go back and think, what if we would have done this? What if we would have? And, I look at it and say, we didn't do it, but she had 4 really, really good months of just being a
Yeah.
kid and not having to worry about things. So it really is a toss up, but yeah, that the chemotherapy and all that cycle, I mean, you're going to go through all of it. And even if you feel good, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask again, now the plan called for 2 bone marrow transplants. Is there a reason that because normally the bone marrow transplant knocks everything out, puts your cells back in.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, you'll just have to educate me on why they would plan to do 2, because normally you only do another one if one doesn't graft right.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I think that was, since it was a part of a plan, like part of the plan the whole time, I never really like thought about it any other way. I know that we had families and stuff that were in very similar situations to us. We met a girl that was only 3 days older than Lily with exact same diagnosis, exact same spot and everything, and they had a very similar one with the 2 bone marrow. I think it might just be kind of what they found was most beneficial just through I guess their experiences there. But yeah, it was just one of those things that we didn't really think about until afterwards, and even after we were kind of just like, it seems like it's worked, so yeah.
So if it the complete, like, you have to do the high dose, then the bone marrow, did they do that cycle twice?
Yeah, so we did high dose bone marrow, and then once her ANCU was high enough, went home for, I want to say it was 3 weeks, maybe a month, and then pretty much came back, did the exact same thing.
And how long were those hospital stays each time?
Those were each about 2.5 to 3 weeks. Yeah, after the bone marrow, she was able to bounce back pretty quick. It'd be like a couple days she's feeling really, really bad, and then all of a sudden she's up and like, hey, I want to go on a walk. Get me out of this room, put me in the wagon, take me anywhere but in this room.
Yeah. It's so, like, again, in my mind, I compare our journey to everybody else's. So I know how ours went. Did Lily have to do physical therapy as kind of like, as she had to do it in order to leave? And did she fight it like our daughter did?
She had to do it. She was obsessed with it. She, every time we passed the physical therapy room when we were being admitted or we were leaving, she was like, I want to go in there. Like, let me in so I can go play and show the nurses how I can go up and down the stairs or how I can throw the ball into the basketball hoop. So every time we stayed, first thing we did was they brought in just a play mat that she could sit on the ground, which started during the first day. Because at first she had this weird thing with her shoulder, because originally she had a port put in, but then during her second surgery, they actually put a power line in. And then that's when they put in a G tube. And that's also when they took one of her ovaries out, which is actually stored across the country now, because that was another decision we had to make within the first about week and a half of being admitted. They were like, hey, this chemo is going to just knock everything out. Do you think she's going to want kids later in life? So it's one of those things where, like, well, if she wants to, like, we should give her the chance to. We were like, yeah, just do what you guys need to do. So it's just frozen somewhere. But back to the physical therapy. After that, she had this weird thing with her shoulder where she would just keep it hunched up like all the time. I think it was kind of to protect that whole area, just because she had so much going on up here and everything. So we worked with physical therapy a lot with like just doing a lot of massage stuff with her, or even just having her throw a ball with her left hand. And that way she's not kind of walking around like that. But after that, she got to know those nurses and the physical therapists and everything. And every time they came in, she was like, oh, yeah, you play with me. You play with me. And they'd bring in like fake food and little doll houses and all that. So they were a big hit for her for sure, along with the, how am I forgetting that department's name?
Child life?
Child life. Yeah. That was every time she saw them, even in the hallway, she was like, you play with me, you play with me. And she'd like try and bring them back into the room.
They, They are a godsend.
Oh yeah.
We had no idea what child life was until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when we're, signing that first waiver, and having to have somebody else explain what was going to happen. And that was a child life specialist. And from there on, they just, they should be the highest paid people in the hospital. I'm just putting it out there. They're unbelievable. And I don't know that I can say it too much in this world and after a diagnosis, but how lucky to have a little fighter that wanted to do physical therapy
Yeah.
and go in there and kind of show them. Our daughter absolutely despised it. Like we had to say, listen, we're going to have to live here unless you do it, and it was one of those things. And I think it might've just been, you know what, I'm going to be in control here. And if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. And, we kind of bent a little bit on it, but at the same time, yeah, without them signing off, you're not going anywhere. So